Good evening from New York. To quote Senator Obama when he was running for the White House, when it comes to federal rights, the over 1,100 rights that right now are not being given to same-sex couples, I think that's unacceptable. And as President of the United States, I'm going to fight hard to make sure that those rights are available. Earlier tonight from the Oval Office, in our fifth story in the countdown, President Obama granting only a handful of rights to same-sex partners of federal employees, except, of course, any federal employees in the military. They are still not allowed to admit being gay because of don't ask, don't tell, except, of course, any benefits like health care or Social Security. The White House prevented from extending those because of the Defense of Marriage Act, which the Obama administration defended just last week. The president today requesting that the director of the Office of Personnel Management and the Secretary of State extend some benefits to same-sex partners of some employees. Why just a request instead of something more forceful? Mr. Obama tonight signing a memorandum, not an executive order, as such a document that will expire the moment his presidency does. Last week, Obama's Justice Department defending the so-called Defense of Marriage Act in a brief urging the Supreme Court to dismiss a legal challenge to the federal ban on same-sex marriage. That piece of legislation limiting what it is that today's memo can actually provide to federal employees in same-sex partnerships. Again, the big-ticket items like health care insurance, Social Security, off the table. A White House fact sheet notably vague on provisions. For the domestic partners of civil service employees, it identifies potential benefits such as long-term care insurance, sick leave to care for non-adopted, non-biological children. For the partners of foreign service employees, benefits like the use of medical facilities abroad, medical evacuation from foreign posts, inclusion of family size for housing allocations. At the White House tonight, the president speaking in opposition to his own Justice Department.
Among the steps we have not yet taken is to repeal the Defense of Marriage Act. I believe it's discriminatory. I think it interferes with states' rights, and we will work with Congress to overturn it.
Wouldn't it be easier to simply refrain from asking the Supreme Court to dismiss a challenge that would overturn DOMA for you? We rejoin the president, already in progress.
We've got more work to do to ensure that government treats all its citizens equally, to fight injustice and intolerance in all its forms, and to bring about that more perfect union. I'm committed to these efforts, and I pledge to work tirelessly on behalf of these issues in the months and years to come.
Day before yesterday, Joe Solomonese, the president of the Human Rights Campaign, wrote an impassioned letter to the president about his administration's defense of the Defense of Marriage Act. Quoting from his letter, "I hold this administration to a higher standard than this brief. In the course of your campaign, I became convinced, and I still want to believe, that you do too. This brief should not be good enough for you. The question is, Mr. President, do you believe that it's good enough for us? If we are your equals, if you recognize that our families live the same, love the same, and contribute as much as yours, then the answer must be no." Joe Solomonese was in the Oval Office for tonight's signing ceremony and has been good enough to join us now. Joe, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
What is that memo signed today? Is that a make good? Is it an IOU? Is it an insult? What is it?
Well, I mean, whether it was a memo or an executive order, I think matters less than what it ends up doing for federal employees who go to work tomorrow with a different set of benefits. You're right about the fact that the president did not convey health care benefits to federal employees, which is what all of us, of course, look to and think about when we talk about benefits. He can't do that under the law. Congress has to do that. But it does make it easier for same-sex couples to provide health care for their children, to take on things like family and medical leave policies, long-term health care, disability. So there are things that it does. But what I was really looking for, and what I think the community is looking for, at least in the context of this move, is the conveyance of health care benefits to federal employees.
Could the president have put more teeth behind it than he did, or was that what he is, as you noted, the limits that he is operating under? Did he do the maximum he could right now, today, in the real world?
Well, under the law as it stands, I mean, in terms of the benefits that can be accessed under today's law, as I said, I think he did what he could do, as well as the non-discrimination policies that will cover sexual orientation and gender identity. But again, what I was looking for was that extension of health care benefits. Now, he cannot do that. Congress has got to convey those benefits under the current law. The president couldn't do that if he wanted to. I was looking for him to call on Congress to do that. It is a bill called the Domestic Domestic Partners Benefits and Obligations Act that would do that. It's sponsored by Tammy Baldwin in the House, Joe Lieberman in the Senate. I was actually happy to walk into the Oval Office and see Joe Lieberman standing there and to have the president call for that bill. So that's what I was looking for, and I think that, you know, ultimately that move and the passage of that legislation will provide federal employees, at least, which is the nation's largest workforce, with the full complements of benefits that they and we are looking for them to be able to receive.
The other piece of legislation under discussion here, what the president said about wanting to overturn the Defense of Marriage Act. What does that mean? Does that mean enough when his Justice Department has just defended that act?
Well, I mean, you know, I think that the only thing that will really satisfy me and members of the community in the aftermath of that, not just the defense, but obviously the language that was in that defense, the language that, to my way of thinking, went way over the line. I think the only thing that is really going to appease people in the aftermath of that is overturning DOMA, is overturning the two aspects of DOMA, the ability to move marriage from state to state and the ability to get the federal benefits that go along with marriage.
Why did you decide to go to the White House tonight? You seem, if not completely in tune with the president right now, at least empathetic to his position. Is that going to react, or is it more outraged members of your own group might not react in the same way that you did?
I wanted to be there tonight. I wanted to hear what the president had to say. I knew that this was the very beginning, again, and I stress very beginning of a set of moves that he would make to make, you know, the federal workforce a more equitable place for our community. But I wanted to hear what he had to say about DOMA. I wanted to hear what he had to say, you know, about the recognition that he needed to not just undertake the acts that he did, but really call on Congress to give him, you know, what I see as the other half of this equation, which is the health care benefits. So I was happy that he spoke out the way he did. I had an opportunity afterwards to speak privately with him and Congresswoman Baldwin and Senator Lieberman about getting this legislation to his desk in an expeditious manner. So, you know, I wanted the opportunity to do that, and I felt like I had it there.
Did he get your letter? Did he have a reaction to it?
He did get my letter. We didn't have an opportunity in the mixed group that we were with to talk about it, but I know that he got it, and I spoke to a number of people at the White House over the last few days who got it, who absolutely understood you know, why I would write it, and many of whom agreed with the points that I made in it.
Joe Solomonese, the president of the Human Rights Campaign. It's always a pleasure, sir. Great thanks for your time tonight.
Thanks, Keith.